there are different people who have in life different goals. And whereas like, Jeff Bezos or whatever, right? His goal might have been, I want to be the richest man in the world, or I want to have the most successful company in the history of humanity. Or some people are like, I want to be a billionaire. My goal was to have a very interesting and rich life, and really to compete with the Dos Equis man. When I'm like 60 years old, I want to be the most interesting man in the world.
So, do you remember when that kind of lightning bolt hits you that I don't have to be any one thing, I want to be plural in every respect of life that I possibly can be? Was there what seed was planted that allow you to think like that?
When I was a kid, I had a really awesome, like, credit to my parents, I had a really awesome home. So there was a library in my dad's office with Plato's Republic and poems by Maya Angelou, and the collected works of William Shakespeare, and also the collected works of Langston Hughes. It was a great thing. So I was able to read philosophy and poetry, and my dad had the entire collection of California Bar study books, which I read. And we also had a music room where we had a drum set, a saxophone, piano, keyboards, right? Next to that, we had an arcade, and the stuff was always breaking. So I had learned like electronic, taking things apart, putting it back together, the speakers, the Nintendo, that kind of stuff. In the gym, in the garage, we had a gym, right? With the punching bag, the weightlifting stuff, right? And then the like stretch bands. And if you switch the lights, I had a dark room in my home. Yeah. And then upstairs, I had a chemistry set that I literally blew up the lamp in my bedroom because I was mixing chemicals. And my parents were like, don't do drugs and have at anything else.
Just go to town on all this creativity and don't do drugs.
Yeah. Or like things that were overtly, like illegal.
So where is home? Where was this Maceo Playhouse?
This is LA County. But I grew up in and around LA, Palmdale, California, Van Nuys, Inglewood.
Wait, so your parents are having to pack up this playhouse and put it back together multiple times?
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it still was a thing that my dad always thought was important, to have like a large amount of access to media. I was one of the only kids in my grade at the time to have like an Apple computer.
Yeah.
Like in 1991.
Okay, so your parents have this amazing house, and they're just like watering a plant, just like creativity. What, like, was there something that they recognized? Because you have a brother too, right?
I have a brother, yeah.
Was there something that they recognized in you specifically that was like, we need to nurture this? Or was this just a general parenting philosophy? It's not normal what your parents did.
No. My dad was, he's maniacal. He was like, thought of us as like projects to build a perfect human.
Like Data.
Yeah, and he was like,
well,
what if I throw this at him? What if I threw this at him? How will he respond? And then with my brother, it was like a different experiment, but it was also, he was still like trying to sculpt us and mold us and shape us and give us opportunities he didn't have.
So when did you get diagnosed or realize that you had ADD?
Well, so this is the thing, right? I've been on dates with people and they're like clinical therapists, and they'll be like, I don't know if I'm really supposed to say this, but there's some symptoms. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I don't know if it's ADD, ADHD specifically as an adult, but I do know that when I was in second grade, I was told that my parents were like, he should be on Ritalin and he should be in special ed.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but I'm getting A's. And then the next year they were like, he should still be on Ritalin, but we're going to put him in GATE because the problem isn't that he's not intelligent. He's not being challenged enough. Mm-hmm. So then they put him in gifted and talented.
That is classic.
They don't know where to put you, right?
Right. And so do your parents recognize this? Like when the teacher's like Ritalin, which is basically saying that you have ADD as a kid, your parents are like, no
hell
way.
no. What we're going to do is we're going to give you our own prescription, which is sit your ass down.
Yeah.
And if we hear about anything in school, you're going to get the belt when you get home. Because it was old school. And
not just old school. I hear that so often with any black person I speak to culturally. It's a different approach to it.
Well, it's also a distrust of like
Sure.
white people talking about how black people should act. It's like, you don't even know what that looks like. You don't know what you're basically saying that because I don't act like the kids next to me that I have some kind of issue, which is the interesting overlap between this concept of neurodivergence and also racial justice, right? Because in both cases, we're using an outdated, ill-informed archetype to compare a person to a norm that isn't actually even real. So when you say that someone's neurodivergent, you could say everyone's neurodivergent, and what we're going to do is treat people based on the way they actually work. But instead, we say, no, we're going to study kids from middle-aged homes from 7 to 9, and we're going to track their progress and their English-speaking first language.
That's right.
And we're going to say that behavioral basis of this Christian Protestant kid in a middle class that speaks English, that's how you're supposed to behave. And if you don't behave like that, then we're not even sure whether it's mental illness or cultural stuff. But, whatever it is, if we can't get you right, we're going to shove something down your throat or we're going to move you into a different place. And I think that those two conversations are really important to think about when we talk about people who have, I guess, what you would call more visible symptoms of ADHD and are also black, right? I mean, if, heaven forbid, you have a drug problem and are black and have any kind of neurodivergence, right? People are not that you're even less likely to be understood and cared for.
It's kind of like to think about your trajectory had your parents not basically treated your quote unquote ADD with stuff, with creative outlets, what your life could have turned to.
You know what I would have become without that? Do you remember the Dirty Vegas music video for Days Go By?
Yes.
And the song that they used?
Yeah.
Days go by. And there was that guy who came out on the cardboard.
Yeah.
Breakdancing.
Yes.
I would have been that guy.
Yeah.
I would have just been like dancing on cardboard in Venice Beach homeless. And people would have been like, this guy's so talented. Why is he here?
Yeah.
And I'd have been like, I don't know, man. The world wasn't set up for me to succeed. I didn't have support. But I found my place, which is just dancing on the cardboard. Because either way, I was going to find my joy. And either way, I was going to find out a way to make it work for me, just because that's part of my spirit. But I do think like socioeconomically, it's entirely opposite end.
Well, what you're speaking to is so interesting. There's it was like a study out of Finland, right? And it showed that kids in Finland, there's less kids with ADHD in Finland.
Yeah, they also use a completely different schooling system. It's called the Finnish model, right?
So exactly what you're hitting at, which involves way more recess time.
Yeah.
It involves way more arts and crafts and like the kids getting their hands dirty, which we don't have here in the US. So is it there's less ADD kids in Finland, or is it maybe just like the world is structured to, encourage and lift the behaviors that we might not be able to exercise here in the US?
Well, I think it's a couple things. One is that the Finnish economy is not as capitalistic as ours. And so that means that the schooling system isn't geared to just produce optimal workers, even if it even does that. But it's also, I think, you give a kid more time to play, the inherent consequence of that is that he sits down and he's expressed his curiosity and he's learning and he's doing and he's moving. And then when they sit down, they're like a little bit tired and they're not actually trying to run around anymore, because what do kids have more than anything is energy. And I think the connection between creativity and ADD is, it's so important to recognize that a lot of people, what you're doing is you're telling them not to be creative, not to think outside the box, not to try new things, not to explore, and just wait.
Everything is a no and wait.
Yeah. literally.
Yeah. But your parents are like, go, go, go. Do as much as you can. Get in as much good trouble as you can.
Yeah.
And get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. They were like, go for it. Keep your grades up, but like, whatever. That if you do these three things, don't bring home a baby, don't bring home the cops, and don't bring home any D's. You'll keep us off your back.
What a great T-shirt or mantra. So how does someone who's like exploring and this unlimited creativity end up going Army? What?
Yeah.
What's that? Is that some type of like trying to find some structure, discipline?
No.
What's why?
I actually had plenty of discipline. My dad was a very disciplined guy, but a couple things. One, I knew college wasn't for me because the way that I thought of college was, why would I pay for information that's in free books in the library? And I didn't really understand the concept of that. Maybe one of the value of going to college is having like an alma mater and a community and a network of professionals and of teachers and of colleagues that you could reach out to. I was like, whatever. But also, I was an art kid, and I definitely wasn't going to go to school to like learn how to be creative because I already was that. And then the third thing was 9/11 happened, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to that place over there, which was college, but I should do something that will contribute to my society. And right around the time 9/11 happened, I was like, okay, starting to decide what I was going to be doing with my life. And I was like, I'm going to join the Army and go defend my country.
And your parents
hated it.
Of course.
My dad, I tried to sign up when I was 17. My dad was like, no way. So I waited until my 18th birthday, and then I walked down to the recruiter's office.
So you saw combat?
Uh-huh.
Where were you stationed?
Well, I was in Iraq,
Uh-huh.
and the operating base that we were on was a special operations base, and so we would have to go to forward operating bases. Sure. And like go out in the Humvees and things like that, and that was no joke. But
one tour?
Yeah, but it was for 18 months.
Yeah, and so how do you change as someone who is a creative?
That was the social experiment. The other part of it that was interesting to me was like, if this doesn't break me, I'm going to be like the most interesting person on the opposite side. Because I was like, if I'm an art kid and then I go to art school, I'll just be another art kid. But if I'm an art kid and I go to the military and I learn their systems and their structure and their like rules, and then if I can do well there, if I can succeed there, then I will have figured out how to take my flighty, airy, ADD, artistic side and put it inside of a structure. And with that sort of background, I knew that there would be nothing that could stop me in the actual world that has a lot more flexibility than the military. So for me, I'm the kind of person that, and you learn this actually from my engagement on Clubhouse. If you give me no rules, I'm going to create endlessly. I'm fine with a blank canvas. But if you give me a lot of rules, I'm going to find your loopholes. I'm going to find the hacks. I'm going to find the different ways that I can push against the system to see what it can handle and how much I can get done within it.
Because creating within a box is actually kind of liberating.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I bet you didn't think this was possible within these particular confines.
Well, because infinity just feels messy.
It can be, but I think of it as like this isn't a Pollock on the wall, but it looks like it's in the similar style of a Jackson Pollock, but it gives me a space to reflect and interpret who I am when there's a world of chaos, right? So if I can't find north, then I seek to find center.
When I think military, I think army, I think masculine men, just pure, testosterone, war. It's a different set of rules. When you come out of that, when you're on the other side of that, well, no, actually, I want to know when you're in it and you're the art kid, you're the creative kid. How are you navigating that space? How are you kind of, I don't know, making friends, trying to stay creative? Are guys giving you shit? What's the vibe? What's the energy like for?
Yeah. So first thing you should know about me is I've never had a bully. So whatever it is that I was doing, I was never exuding insecurity. And that's like the first thing that a bully wants is they want to smell the insecurity.
Are you insecure though?
No.
You know, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I would think that once you go to war, like, what is there to be insecure about?
I mean, we all have our little insecurities, but I don't think that I'm insecure like at my core or fundamentally. But what it allowed for me to do is always look people in the eye and be like, you think you're better, I think we're different.
Yeah. It's such an important shift because it takes the tension away. Versus right or wrong, good or bad, but different. It kind of allows you. It's a roundabout. It's a European roundabout.
Yeah, it's like, cool, dude. You've got big muscles. I can run very fast.
Yeah.
So where you have strength, I have speed.
You also have a sense of humor, which I'm sure played well.
Well, yeah, there was that, and then also at the time, you know, I was rapping. So, you know, I'm just like I can freestyle rap, and everyone thought that was cool. So I used my creativity to my advantage, and I used it to...
Wait, your freestyle, what is this, 8 Mile in Baghdad?
Yeah.
You know I'm about to ask you for a rap. Come on, you can't say I rap and then... Do you need subject matter?
No, I'm not.
What do you
it's
need?
just not happening.
What are you talking about?
I'm retired.
Come out of retirement.
You can't, no, because that's bad for your... credibility. Then it's better that I don't rap than rap poorly, and you have to practice. It's a muscle you have to keep strong.
So you come home a better person.
I think the opportunity to become a better person was there.
Being in the war zone, you kind of see the worst of the world, and art is about looking at, you know, what the world can become. Aspirational, the beauty in it. How does your kind of worldview change after you come home?
Well, one way that my worldview changed was that I was a lot more jaded and disenchanted with institutional systems. And while that might sound like a negative, it actually became a positive in relationship to my creative practice, because I started to see like big institutions as kind of a scam. Or at least lacking the degree of credibility that was impenetrable. So to me, I started to feel like, oh, well, if they can do this, then I can do this too. So I developed some confidence in my own ability to create systems and structures and institutions of my own.
And I feel like that's something that you're so good at and you think so often about. We were part of a group of people that tried to start a collective, an unstructured collective, which fell apart, not to your fault or detriment, but the way you critically think about how to best utilize people and for systems to be moving probably could solve 90% of the world's problems.
Yeah, I think that there's something that I didn't know was a skill I was developing as a kid that was very helpful. But it was probably in response to my own trying to make sense of myself, is that when you say infinity is messy, and when you think about like the experience of having ADD, sometimes what happens is like the opposite, where you're seeking to have control in your external world because you have a lack of control of like the way your brain is working. And so you're like, let me just be super organized because that's what's going to allow me to be functional. That's really hard to maintain. And so then other people sometimes maybe they're like, well, there's no way I can ever do that. My brain doesn't work that way. For me, it's kind of like the balance between the two. Well, what are the flexible systems that I can install? What are the habits and routines and rituals that I can lean on that, one, give me the grounding and the structure, but still allow me to feel free and explore? So I think of it as like primary colors. It's still bright and it's still vibrant and there's an infinite possibility, but you're starting with something very simple that can be made sense of. So
how do you navigate your life today with ADD and the systems and the structures? Do you have specific things that you implement on a daily basis, or?
Well, sometimes you just like have to be ready to let certain balls drop. honestly. Like I'm like, maybe this is my last day of underwear. Or I don't know. You know what I mean? Stuff happens.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, I mean, there's no magic bullet or silver bullet. Magic bullet's the blender. There's no silver bullet, but also because of that, the first step is just having grace for yourself.
But that's hard to get to. Like, I feel like I'm just now getting there, where I would say in the last few years where I've been like, you know what? I'm the guy that runs late sometimes, not trying to be offend anyone who I'm, trying to meet. That's just kind of who I am. Sometimes I say things 8 times. I say things in a group, people laugh. 2 other times I either piss them off or make everyone uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And I just play those odds and I kind of don't care. And it's crazy because there's a couple people that I mentor who are younger, like in their 20s, and they hold on so tightly to their ideas or their expectations. And I feel like it's this cruel game that life plays with you, is that how can you articulate to someone who's younger, like, you are going to have lots of different jobs. You are going to change your mind. You are going to take a bunch of L's and you are going to be successful. And you just got to flow with that. I don't know how to articulate that to someone who hasn't just like lived and experienced life, because I feel like there's no shortcut.
I don't even try. I say the things that I want to hear. I say the things that I need to hear because that's what's going to help get me through, in the hopes that saying them out loud gets other people through too that need to hear it. But I kind of have like put on pause the idea of trying to get ideas into other people's heads that don't want them. So yeah. I'm like, actually, what's more useful for me is to be a comforting voice after they've stumbled than to try to like help them avoid what is inevitably a part of life's bumps and bruises.
Right, because how much have we learned from making the mistake, from
so much.
Taking the loss, getting fired?
So it's like, if we can prevent a broken ankle and make it a sprain,
right, then
that's great. That's what we want to do. But you don't want to remove the opportunity for people to learn from their own decisions.
That's the only way you grow is to go through. There's no shortcut.
I mean, I almost would say that if you're not going through things, then you're not growing.
Yeah. And you
like
and I,
without puberty, which sucks, you never get to adulthood.
That's right.
And you need to go through like crazy fluctuations of emotions and rage and sadness and whatever the hell's going on. Where do I fit in the world?
Yeah.
And then you start to not care after a little while.
I'm thinking a lot about this. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about this as a parent, and my instinct is to want to take care of him, to prevent, him being sad, make any challenge easier. And it's one of the hardest things that I'm having to go through is like, how much room, how much slack do you give them to be uncomfortable? And in the hopes that they learn and they grow from that. Versus doing what your instincts tell you and be like, I got to protect you. I got to like make sure life is a little bit easier for you. And it's really tough, like giving people the space to fall.
Yeah. I don't understand that at all, the parenting side of it. But I can speak from like the human being side of it, which is just to say that, if you're offering help to avoid harm, that's one thing. If you're offering help to avoid discomfort, that's something else.
One of the ways I still struggle with my ADHD is through overthinking, and it becomes this cycle where I start to question my own creativity.
My biggest obstacle is my fear of rejection. It's probably one of the biggest weaknesses you can have in an industry like mine.
Just the overwhelm. There's a lot of things coming at you as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of possibilities.
The biggest gift that the course gives you is a new mindset. I have fully embraced all of the things that I need in order to feel organized, to feel very confident with who I am and how I work.
This course definitely helped inspire me to figure out what trajectory I am taking my work.
I'd recommend this course to all creatives or creative entrepreneurs that know deep within them that they have something that they want to share with the world, but they haven't necessarily been able to tap into the potential that they believe is there.
And so you come back to the States. Your mind has shifted slightly. I know you as someone who seems, very optimistic, kind of sees the world in a beautiful way. What did it take to kind of like...
No. Let me correct that.
No? Great.
I do have optimism, and I do see beauty in the world and in people at the individual level. But I see a lot of doom in society. Like the climate thing is, we botched it. We're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I feel. It's like America's judicial system, the experiment of the United States, we botched it. We're fucked. We probably have like 150 years left of the United States. And then it'll be like, cool, that was a cool 700 years. Now we're like 43 states and a couple of different countries all in North America, right? Like
the country of California.
We're like fucked in that regard.
Right.
But what I do have a deep faith and optimism for is this sort of indefatigable spirit of humanity, and our ability to like do whatever we put our minds to when we come together and can resolve like the more smaller differences. Mm-hmm. If we could do that, then we could have a great country and a great society. But it's our time to go into that difficult season of adolescence as a species, I think. And there's no guarantee that we'll make it out.
What's interesting...
Sorry.
No, spoiler alert. No, but what's interesting is that how would you describe your... Most of the energy that you put towards work is in the creative fields.
Yes.
Right? Versus addressing the doom and gloom that you just brought up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that where I'm at is the reality of things is such that where it makes the most sense for me to point my energy is to finding joy, learning how to process my grief and resolve conflict with the people that I want to be around.
How do you resolve conflict? That one has always been a struggle for me. I think I've been like, my trajectory is a little weird because for the most part, I grew up in Florida. Plenty of toxic masculinity sprinkled throughout the state. And I thank God I feel like I was able to get out of suburban Orlando because because my parents were both from Europe. And so I kind of had those sensibilities, and I had an older sister who went away to college. And so I visited her in college. I was like, oh, look at all these awesome people. It's not just like, hanging out the Walmart parking lot, in some big pickup trucks. And so I was like, I think I'm so thankful that I was exposed to all that. And then the ADD, you're always exploring and looking and trying to stimulate and get that dopamine hit. But I don't think it was until I moved to Los Angeles and I actually found like a group of guys where we were very open with each other, not afraid to talk about our feelings. It wasn't until I was exposed to those people that allowed me to kind of, shift and shed some of the toxicity that I picked up as a kid.
Yeah, I think that travel and being exposed to different people, influences of women who were non-romantic but influential people in my life is also something that I resonate with in terms of that. And then my creative side is just really, I always try to be more than just the artist and more than just the ideas guy. I'm interested in also practicality and deliverables too, because I think that for many people, they don't have the luxury of being able to like be endlessly curious. They might want to, but they're like in a position where they feel like they have to have some kind of output in order to make it worth their exploration.
Yeah. And so what is your job? You're still at the museum right now in Detroit?
No, now I'm an independent curator, an artist, and then I just took this new job, and it is basically a growth role, helping.
I love that you need to pause to try and describe it.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
This is such a good example. This is such a good example. Like, you've had fantastic jobs, really cool stuff. Things are always shifting. I'm sure that can be stressful, paychecks and whatnot. But there's an ease that you have that, like, yeah, I'm. This is kind of how I live. I'm in a perpetual state of just change and being okay with that. Just kind of trusting that things will happen for you. It's kind of a wild place to be in, but it feels a little nirvana.
You got to be zenned out, otherwise you're going to be stressed out. Now, I am fortunate that I don't have like a very high anxious element to my personality. So I'm kind of like, this might not work out. And if it doesn't, it's going to suck. But I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
And if I died, then I won't have anything to worry about anyway.
I feel like and this is a part of ADD that's not talked about. And this was the mind shift for me with 4,000 Weeks, was no one really talks about the philosophical point of view of life and how that can reduce our anxiety, and that can allow us to like not hold on, not be so stressed about certain ideas and concepts. And again, I'm wondering if like that's only possible because we're kind of older and we've experienced a lot of stuff, or is that something that someone can grab onto a little bit? Like, if I was a little bit less stressed in my 30s, like I feel I could have maybe been more successful, whatever that word means, but like I feel like I could have just navigated people and situations better had I not held on so tightly to them.
No, so that was what I was going to say about navigating conflict, is that I think for navigating conflict, the first step is to be willing to be wrong and be perceived as wrong in the conversation. So if I'm more about holding on to some self-perception or to be seen a certain way than I am about getting to the bottom of the disagreement.
Or being right.
Then it's like not going to work. But if I can say, you know what, that was fucked up. I'm not perfect. And I have to really think about whether I'm even a good person or as good a person as I think I am. And I'm going to do that thinking. And also, let's look at the scenario and how I could learn and do better next time. And also, what are my needs and what are my boundaries? And so where it's like, you know what? If a position means, this relationship can't move forward, then I have to make a real serious decision about whether I value the relationship more than the perspective. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those practical terms really do help you to understand who you are in the world and whether altruism is really our highest priority.
I would think that's professional relationships, romantic relationships.
Professional relationships and romantic relationships, they're like the same. Uh-huh. That's why Esther Perel just jumped from romance to work consulting, because it's just relationships.
And you get paid more.
Yeah. I mean, but the structure is communication, trust, clarity, boundaries.
Yeah. But what's interesting, for as long as I've known you, you haven't had like a consistent relation. Like, you haven't been in a relationship. When was the last time you were in a relationship?
Hey, ladies.
When was the last time you were in a relationship? Of a significant amount of time.
2015, 16.
That's a long time ago.
I mean,
is that by choice?
2 years of it was Pando, and I was not trying to lock it down in the Pando. So it's really only 3 years when you think about it. I'm technically still in the rebound.
Is that your fault? Are you are you a difficult person to date?
Now, what does your ADD, ADHD tell you about that?
You're damn hard to date.
Yeah.
Real damn hard. I feel for my wife every day. She, God bless. I don't know how she puts up with me.
Yeah, and it also takes a degree of vulnerability to open yourself up to being seen in ways that are not, always favorable. But I feel like for me right now, it's just more about the fact that I travel so much and I'm doing all kinds of projects that I haven't really given it an opportunity to like invest in someone and knowing someone at a very deep level. But there are seasons to our life. And so I don't have any sort of concerns about my ability to love and love deeply. It's just more like, hey, this is still, I look in the mirror, I can't tell the difference between me now and me 10 years ago. So
you're in no rush.
Yeah, I'm not in any rush.
So you don't feel like companionship is important for you today, or is it?
It's not a priority for me today.
Yeah, but you want kids, you want family. You don't want those things.
I don't know if I want kids.
So this is wild to me.
I see the people with kids, and I see what.
You see how tired I am? Do you see the dark circles under my eyes?
I see the dark circles. I see the
5 hours of sleep for the last 2 years.
I see the tipped over oatmeal and all that stuff. I'm like, you shouldn't, if you're a single person, you shouldn't follow people that are married with a toddler on TikTok.
Well, this is interesting because this is a very interesting dynamic. I don't speak with my dad anymore. He wasn't a great person in my life or my family's life. And so there's a part of me that really, I wanted to have at least one kid because I was like so excited to like be a good dad and to try and create the environment that I did not have. You sounds like had an awesome dad, awesome mom.
Why mess it up?
Seems to have done everything right. And you're like, nah, I'm not trying to hand that off to someone else.
Yeah, why would I mess it up? Let's end on a high note. My bloodline's doing great.
Yeah, but you got the keys. Like you have the experience. What does it say about us that I wanted one and you don't? Interesting.
I don't think the only reason to want kids is because you want to correct something in your childhood.
No.
But I do think that that if I were to ever have a desire to have kids, I think I would be a really good father.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I feel like I would be great.
Your podcast is so childlike.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be like, okay, cool. We are having ice cream for dinner.
I actually do the ice cream first. I think it's a parenting hack because if you give it after, then it's right before bed. Whereas if you do it before, they have time to burn it off. Then you do dinner. Then you go to bed.
Yeah, there you go.
It's practical and you look like the cool parent. It's like ice cream first. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Let's get crazy. How do you stop yourself? Because you're clearly a mad scientist who wants to play in lots of different sandboxes. How do you self-regulate that? Because there is a lot that you do. There's a lot of ways that you express yourself. And one of the problems I think ADD people have is like we end up doing too much, which means we end up doing nothing.
Yeah. So the hack that I came up with, it's not a hack really, but it's just a technique. About 7 years ago, I realized I had like 3 projects going, 2 businesses, all kinds of stuff in the pipeline. And I was spreading myself thin. So what I thought about is instead of having a bunch of snacks, why don't I make a meal? And so then what I did is I consolidated and pruned every project away. And I said, well, everything that I do is going to run through Citizens of Culture.
Citizens of Culture is?
Citizens of Culture is the nonprofit 501c3. It's entertainment, media, but it's for emotional intelligence and critical thinking. And it's art-based. So what I said was, well, what... Instead of working on these projects that are going to be like 1 or 2 year projects, wouldn't it be cooler if I could take a bite out of something that I could work on for the rest of my life and then find 1 to 3 year campaigns to run underneath that umbrella?
Wow. You're like the second or third person now that I've talked to who has figured out. It's so funny because I feel like, oh, I hacked this with all day dreaming. Let me create my thing, and it's a box, but it's a big enough box where we can play in different spaces, but not so big that it's out of control, right? Or nothing gets done. It clearly there's a pattern here, because again, you're the third person that I've heard create that thing. That's exactly what you're talking about. Some boundaries, but you can't go outside of those boundaries.
Yeah, it's not like think outside of the box. It's build a custom box.
Right. And who knows what shape that box is.
And actually, like, a playground is also a box.
Right.
It just has a diverse set of obstacles and toys and tools that you can play with for a while.
Yeah. And I think and this also I think only comes with like experience, but to understand that even the things that you're pumped on, at some point in the process you will hate, you'll be frustrated, you'll be mad.
Again, are we talking about relationships?
You want to quit your work relationships, your relationships with art or women or your neighbor, whatever it is, and to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to want the vision more than the hardship that you're going to have to face along the way.
Yeah. And right.
So
and
that's my thing is like, well, what's worth this? Because, you know, if you're really in love with the vision that you're creating, then it feels less like work. It just feels like stuff you got to do, you know? But that hunger has to be profound enough, and you have to be in touch with it. And, you know, I think everyone doesn't have that vigor, and I certainly don't have it all the time. And in those moments, I just kind of have to take a break and reevaluate.
And I think the other key component is some layer of accountability, some type of risk. We work great with deadlines, even if we wait till the last minute, have to pull an all-nighter. They're not.
That's what they're for.
They're pretty
That's
good.
how you know when you're supposed to start it.
That's right. But like, like I have a friend recently who, you know, while the rest of us were making sourdough bread, she wrote a book over COVID. And the book crushed. She got a book deal, which was very unusual for a first-time writer. She's got written up in the New York Times. She's got, you know, article in The Cut. Like, it's incredible. And she literally went all chips in, quit her job. And it's like, oh, I'm not going to make any money if I don't make this book happen. Like, my life is really going to suck. Granted, it was a little bit easier because we were all locked inside anyways. But still, I was like, yeah, these are the patterns that I see. It's a mix of some layer of accountability, some type of like high stress situation if all things go south, community, and then creating that box, that playground that you can play in.
There is a formula there, and it's like, you know, you just have to find your way. And I think that is the benefit of being someone that has ADD, is that you've already had to figure out your own way to do things.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is being a curator at a museum. You're an artist, yet you're curating other artists.
Yeah, for sure.
How does that, like, A, that's a cool job, but also if you're trying to be an artist, that feels a little like frustrating because I'm sure you'd want people to be curating your work.
I'm getting curated while there's curation happening. Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into the art world a little bit. What, for someone who is trying to navigate that space, who wants their work shown, just, I don't know, talk a little bit about entry level into the art world, because that seems super hard and intimidating.
So my thing is, don't change what you're going to make. Make what you want to make, but find your audience, find the people that want what you're making.
And can you do that without social media? There has to be a social component.
Well, it happened before social media, so you can find more creative ways to market. What social media allows you is viral network effects and attribution.
Sure, but it's hard pressed for me to point towards people that, if you're trying to put your work up on social media in any meaningful way, that it isn't altered by the algorithms, trying to, what's the point of posting something if no one sees it? Because you don't get the intended effects that you just discussed.
Yeah. So find another reason to post in the meantime. So I don't post because I want people to see it exclusively. I also post because it's a great way to document my journey and to have a record of the cool stuff that I've made and ideas. So I think of it as just a little bit more refined notepad.
That's how you approach Instagram, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's just like a diary.
Yeah. And then it's like the ideas that I'm working through, I get to find out. Like, for example, my first book, The Tao of Maceo, was based off of a bunch of comments and captions that I wrote on Facebook and Instagram. And then I was like, oh, these are the most popular pieces of content. What's the through line here? Oh, people are curious about identity, relationships, work. This is the content that people are coming to me for. Maybe I can expand on this in a more formal way, and then I'll end up with a book.
God damn it, I forgot you're an author too.
Told ya.
There's just too much good stuff. It's not okay. Tell me something bad about you, please. Help us feel better. Where's the struggle? Give me the story that makes me think you're just not a perfect human crush.
No. I mean, I think the thing is that, like, if you're passion led, like I said I was earlier, I'm not interested in being the wealthiest person. So if you're looking for a millionaire, ladies, I'm not your guy. Just like I'm not him. If you want a guy who's in the gym, not skipping leg day, then I'm not your guy. I'm a runner. I'm not a muscle lifter. I do yoga. So it's like, it's just to each their own. But I think that having to do soul searching about what you want out of life and financial difficulty, and those things come from any way of living. But I definitely have to traverse that territory as well.
God, my relationship with money is very numbers on a screen. I feel like once your basic needs are met, once you can house, food, after that, to me, it's just like numbers on a screen.
I feel like that. It's like, what are we even talking about? It's like derivatives or something like that. Tax, APR, I mean.
But so many ADD people fall into debt. There's the ADD tax, right, that people talk about. Because I buy 30 notebooks because I'm losing them all, or I don't use them, or I get excited because I need another one, or because I forgot to pay my bill, and then I have anxiety about dealing with that.
Oh yeah, no matter
really
how
easy.
much money I make, Edison's still gonna call me.
Yeah, how I would say since I moved to LA. Thank God I live in a place now where I don't get street tickets. Street cleaning is a big deal here in Los Angeles. You can get tickets and towed. I probably have given the city $7,000-8,000 over the course of the 15 years-ish that I've lived here.
Yeah.
Just because I forget my car's in the street, then it gets towed, then I can't get it for 3 days, and I couldn't get the money.
Yeah.
One thing after another.
Yep. I've lost entire vehicles that way. Whereas like, oh, guess I don't own that car anymore. That somebody's gonna get a nice Mercedes auction.
So your relation, you talk about this. What's your course? The trauma of money.
Trauma of money.
And give me the.
So the trauma of money is a course for practitioners to help get them certified on training, coaching people through their lived experience and traumas with the financial world. So it's not just if you grew up poor, it could also be if you grew up wealthy, but there are many of us that are dealing with experiences that make it hard for us to engage with or wrap our head around the financial world. And that keeps us impoverished and it keeps us held back.
And so what is the thing that you want people to take away at the end of your course?
The end of the day, the idea is that your worth is not tied, to put it in like a pithy way, is that your net worth is worth more than your network. Like you're not numbers on a screen. You're a living, breathing human being, and nothing can quantify that. So think of the world of money and finance as a tool, as a vehicle, just like your car that can help you get from point A to point B. But you got to be willing to look under the hood, pull in the dipstick, and make sure that you have engine oil and put gas in the car every day. Money is not magical, it's just a thing that you can put attention to and work on and develop healthy habits around.
What are people, so when people come to this course, this class, what is it that do you see some type of common thread with all of them? What is it that they're that isn't clicking for them with money, or they're seeking to learn about money?
Well, the course was created by Chantel Chapman, and I'm one of the instructors that is a part of helping it, be what it is. But, I'll say that one of the most common themes is people having been harmed by financial systems, and they don't want to come off as greedy, but they're also want to be paid a living wage. Mm-hmm. And finding how they can communicate and orient themselves between those two parameters is a large part of what the course offers. Got it.
And so do you check in with people? What have been some of the results over time? What has shifted for folks?
I mean, some people, there's someone who left a testimonial that was literally the course changed my life. My relationship to money has altogether changed. And as a result of that, I'm in Costa Rica, something like that. Living on less money and not trying to be in the sort of rat race. They just decided that, if I take some freelance projects per year in the United States and live in a different country, then I can actually just live a high quality of life without having to struggle so much.
What is that about us that as soon as we make more, we want to spend more? There's people that I know that are super wealthy that stress about money because, they live a certain level of comfortable life that they're trying to maintain. What is that chasing all the time? Why can't we just recognize in the moment I got a pay raise? Doesn't mean I should raise my living standards necessarily.
Well, because we weren't happy before. And we were just unable to dream bigger than our circumstance. But I'm always dreaming bigger than my circumstances, so I'm never fully satisfied anyway.
Okay, so
I'm
then
all day dreaming, you might say.
I thank you for working in the title of the show.
All Day Dreaming is brought to you by
Maceo.
The letter G, the color yellow, and circles.
There you go. Thank you. Okay, so what are you dreaming up these days? What are your aspirations today?
Well, because we've talked about it, but the Friend Show is still happening. Is the story of how we reconcile ourselves with the impending collapse of our civilization in a fun, colorful way.
In Muppet form.
Yeah.
It's really cool, man. This is one of the things I appreciate about you is that you're down to experiment. You're down to throw yourself out there and try. You don't hold on to any idea too tightly. It feels like the right way to be creative because you just have to do it. You have to go through the motions for you to find the thing that finally feels good and meets your expectations.
Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah.
I don't need to add to that.
So what are your list of projects right now, just so I'm clear?
I mean, everything's
in their hierarchy.
I mean, I'm doing the growth work with the marketing stuff. Yeah, and then
Number
I have
two?
Citizens of Culture.
Culture.
No, Friend Show's second.
So Friend Show's second. Citizens of Culture is still doing your seminars.
Yeah.
Okay, teaching people about finance. What are other topics? Conflict resolution. Grief. And those
then
are...
somewhere in there is intermittent dance gigs.
Got it. So 4 things that are on your plate.
Yeah. That are moving in and out of focus and periphery.
The dance stuff is really cool.
Yeah, but that's not all the time. I mean, really, it's more my daily practice for my own personal well-being.
That's just like meditation. That's going for a run. That's just...
Yeah. But sometimes people will say, what about this art project?
Yeah.
And then I'll say, all right, well, I can dedicate a week or two for that. And they're like, okay, that's all we'll do is a week or two. And then they'll be like, but we need that third week, and I'm like, well, I said a week or two, and they're like midway through the project. And
You're pretty good about saying no. I feel like you're one of the people who understand that when you say yes to something, you're really saying no to other things.
yeah.
And I feel like you've definitely given me a hard no a few times. I'm like,
Well,
okay, respect.
And then other times, but this is the thing, is like, here we are.
We are here. That's true, because it is an art form to pursue someone just to the point that they don't hate you. Like it's really an art form, like to be a pest but not a mosquito.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you have to be, the word is persistent.
Yeah. But in a likable way, which is
Yeah.
hard to do. And also be okay that people will say no, not right now. Hey, just a friendly ping, friendly reminder. You gotta just like slight foot on the gas, but don't go 90 miles an hour at them.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tough
Pace is huge.
Pace is big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you do your dancing, when you do things that kind of tap into more to your feminine sensibilities, can you talk a little bit how you got comfortable with that?
I don't know. Everybody stretches.
It almost feels like you have a cure for a lot of the toxic masculinity that has, succumb our culture, and that you are very comfortable with tapping into things that would be perceived as more feminine. And so I think that's part of kind of the charm and allure of you.
That's the thing, is that I don't think of it that way. I'm not like,
I know you don't.
I'm like David Bowie. You know how many chicks want to bone that guy before he died? Prince. Do you think, what I mean? Like, these are the sexiest people who have ever lived. Look at Harry Styles now, right?
Bingo.
Like, this is not it's just that masculinity and manhood is actually much broader than we've allowed it to be. And we take Prince and David Bowie and we say, oh, they're like not representative. But there are billions of examples of those types of guys throughout history that are doing flamboyant, crazy, colorful things. And we just like to say that they're exceptions instead of not a part of the group.
I think there are exceptions in that there's something about success that allows you to kind of shed any self-consciousness, right? Like,
No. I think what I'm saying is that there's a bunch of people who are doing that kind of thing, but we don't notice them. And because we don't notice them, we only able to see the like shining example of when it turns into a celebrity.
Exactly. 100%. But I think at some point, for lack of a better term, there has to be kind of a safe space that allowed you to go there. What was that? Was it your parents? Was it your dad? I
think that when I was growing up, the rules were don't bring home a baby, don't bring home any D's, and don't bring it home with the cops. Everything else was like up for negotiation. So the practice was becoming in touch with myself and pursuing my desires and a self-expression that was authentic to me. And of course, there's social programming that comes with that you want to contend with.
Right.
But along the way of developing, like what I was saying with the ADD and finding your own way, we already do have nascent skill sets for adjusting the way that we move in the world. And some stuff we just can't concede. There are just ways that we are. And then there's other things that we choose to concede because we think we're going to get some kind of short-term benefit for giving up that part of ourselves. And I'm just of the experiment that, maybe those things that we give up for short-term benefit aren't worth what we lose on the long term.
Maceo's the most creative man on the planet. And I'm very thankful that we're friends and that you take the time to chat with me, and looking forward to holding you accountable for the Friends Show.
All right. When I am interviewing The Rock on the Friends Show, you're going to be like, yeah, that was that convo that we had. I put brass to tacks and Maceo was motivated on that day.
I want to see you and The Rock would have the most fantastic interview.
I know, right?
Hands down.
I know, right? You hear that? Dwayne, DJ, come on, man. Quit playing around. Hit me back.
Okay, that's it. Do you know someone who would enjoy this conversation? Share it with them. And if you have just a moment, please rate our show and leave a comment on whichever platform you listen to. It really helps us reach other creative thinkers with ADHD just like you. My name is Hyla. Thanks for listening.